Good afternoon. Welcome to Sports Nothing But Sports with Kent Sterling on a dismal Wednesday, brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry, Dr. Mike O'Neill, simply the best dentist that there is in Central Indiana. He's been my dentist the last 26 years. I know what it's like to be treated by Dr. Mike O'Neill, and it's great. You'll love it. 317-849-2933. Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals tonight on NBC. Cannot wait to watch that game between the Blues and the Bruins. The Cubs, they're at Houston tonight. That game on ESPN, 8 o'clock. The Cubs, losers last night, 9-6 in Game 2 of that series. And tomorrow night, we've got Game 1 of the NBA Finals between the Golden State Warriors and the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors, are they going to be able to hang with the Warriors? Kevin Durant not playing in Game 1. Is he going to play in Game 2? Let's talk about that series, the Indiana Pacers, the NBA Draft Combine with the great Scott Agness of The Athletic. Scott, how you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well, Kent. How about you?
We got a day. I'm doing all right. We got one day until these finals finally start. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. We got some media day, which I get into all the nuances and little things in our world a little bit, and the questions, and you can tell what media guy, what his storyline is based on every single question that he asks the same guy, which is kind of annoying at this point. It's interesting to me, I think, to see a guy like Kawhi Leonard in this setting because clearly he's not comfortable, and that's not a bad thing. He just wants the ball. So I'm really excited. I'm ready to get going. I just wish we saw both teams at full strength. I wish OG Anunoby would be playing for the Raptors. I wish Durant would certainly be playing for the Warriors as well.
Now, he traveled to Toronto, but he's been ruled out for Game 1. I'm guessing that means that in Game 2, that's still up in the air, right?
Yeah, that's as currently as they've announced it to this point. We saw him, and I don't know how much you want to read into it, but as he walked to the plane, one of the local TV crews captured him carrying food, and there was a slight limp. But you never know. Some guys have their own style, right? And they walk normal with their own little limp. So I don't know how much to read into that, but it's clear he won't be 100% until this offseason. It's just, I'll be curious, Ken, how much this Warriors team and Durant as well are willing to maybe push it. Are they willing to push the line and maybe let him go at 65%? Or do they need to wait till he's, say, 90% to get back after it?
Well, you know what? As long as they keep winning without him, I don't worry too much, right? Now, if they lose without him tomorrow night, then all of a sudden you think, okay, maybe we got to kind of reconnoiter and figure some things out. But right now the Warriors look and I'm not one of these lunatics who thinks that the Warriors are better without Durant, but right now they compete really, really well without him. They're not better without him, but they compete well without him.
Then there's certainly more fun. I don't think there's any argument there. And just the playing style and the way in which that's required of them to play, right? They have to play more team ball. It doesn't get stuck as much on an isolation situation they do with Durant on the right wing. He's a guy that loves the mid-range. As much of the league's gotten away from that, he embraces it and loves the ball in his hands and just isolating, which it's not to the annoying level, I think, of James Harden. But it's not the pretty brand of basketball that we've been used to with the Warriors before he came aboard their program.
In order to compete with the Warriors, are the Raptors going to need a guy like Van Vliet did in the series against the Bucks to just go off and bury shot after shot after shot to keep them close and maybe steal a couple at the end?
Yeah, they need that other guy, right? We can all expect Kawhi to do his thing at both ends. Maybe it's Pascal Siakam, quite frankly, who I think easily is going to be the most improved player and kind of came out of nowhere, especially this year. Lowry can't afford to have some dud games, right, where he hadn't shown up like we've seen from him and even DeMar DeRozan in the past where, he finishes with 2 points and 4 assists. He's a guy where they need consistent numbers. It doesn't need to be 20 points and 12 assists, but they need big contributions from him. And then one of the more interesting storylines to me, Ken, is the inside play in the center position because we very much saw the Raptors, I thought, try to counter earlier in the year, planning ahead for this potential situation with DeMarcus Cousins. And so they're a rare team that has quality centers. Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, all right there, that can play that position. Will they be needed? Or will maybe both teams play faster, more small ball lineups as well?
What do we know about Cousins?
He is available for Game 1, according to Steve Kerr. The question, though, for him, and more so the team, Ken, is the disruption of chemistry, right? They've won 5 straight games with without Kevin Durant. Do they want to kind of throw him out in the fold? Because clearly he is a all NBA level player when he's himself, but he's not going to be 100% for the offseason with a quad injury. Very different, though, from Victor Oladipo. So it's how much does Kerr and his staff want to take a risk, take a gamble, and throw him out there, because he does slow things down a little bit. And so that is a very different way of playing. But if he's out there and is dominant in the post, maybe that's something you turn to if you lose a game or two.
Talking to Scott Agness of The Athletic. You were up at the draft combine up in Chicago, and great piece on the three Mr. Basketballs who were up there, Chris Wilkes, Kyle Guy, and Romeo Langford. What did you learn up there, first of all?
Well, the biggest thing is it's almost like a social gathering, if you will. It's like a media party for us at the big events. That's the biggest thing that goes on, is the schmoozing, at least as it relates to the event at Quest Multisport there on the suburbs of Chicago. Now, the biggest impact of that whole week for the players and the teams is what happens in the hotel rooms and the interview rooms. Teams can submit up to 30 names to interview. They generally get about 20 guys to come through for 30 minutes each, and that's where they can, much like the scouting combine here in Indy, handle that room as they wish. They could go through basketball. They could question them about their checkered past, let's say, or ask how they would handle certain situations. But for us at the combine, it's mostly talking. So there's Frank Vogel over here. There's the Pacers front office sitting front row at center court. And what interests me was how they were not part of kind of the schmoozing. They were very much isolated in their own spot and weren't getting up to talk and hang around. So I thought it was very much a focused, work-like attitude from the Pacers. But for most of us in the media and other scouts and league execs, there's so many conversations going on. We saw the Pelicans, Dave Griffin, talking with Rob Pelinka of the Lakers, and maybe it was about nothing. Maybe it was trying to develop a friendship, or maybe it was about Anthony Davis. We just don't know. But those are the biggest things that go on. There's obviously interviews and testing, but it's all about talking and kind of seeing where people are come this off season, I think.
Maybe it was, hey, what kind of a shit show are you running out there in Los Angeles? For the love of God, this thing has exploded 7 different ways to Sunday.
Yeah, no, and I'm torn with this whole situation, right? Because I hate that this reality TV show, so to speak, is dominating the conversation, where right now it should be showcasing the best of the league, right? It should be showcasing how Toronto's making it to the NBA Finals and Canada's represented in the finals for the first time, or how the Warriors are trying to go for yet another title, and how it truly is a dynasty at this point. And they try to add to their layered history now. But instead we're talking about Magic Johnson. And I thought it was kind of an embarrassment truly last night on ESPN, where it was great that they were able to get him for an interview because of their relationship, I think, with Stephen A. But at the same time, I thought it was completely disrespectful to have your reporter Baxter Holmes, who is based out of L.A., who has done all kinds of reporting. I knew this story was coming at least back in February. It was just a matter of time. Clearly spending months on the story, to not involve him in that conversation, or to basically shovel off his reporting and just get a minor statement from Magic about the whole thing, basically dismissing it. I thought that was terribly wrong. That was wrongly handled with that whole thing, and disrespectful to the author, who was employed by the same company.
Welcome to the 2019 version of ESPN. That's what they do and who they are, man. If Steven didn't ask him the question, the question doesn't get asked.
Yeah, there is that, in that if you say, hey, Magic, we got to grill you about this, quite frankly, maybe he doesn't show up and do the interview. And so you weigh, do we care about our numbers? Do we care about the pure entertainment? Or do we want to get back to our roots and truly follow up on the story? And I guess I understand it, because entertainment's in their name, right? ESPN. But at the same time, when your company is reporting that story, I think you owe it to everybody to follow up and ask the right questions.
Scott, where are the Pacers at right now vis-a-vis the draft and free agents? Are they still just doing their work and checking boxes and in the war room trying to figure out who they are, what they are, and who they're going to work out?
So right now, Kent, they're very much on the road, and something that it changed dramatically, maybe you could say, over the last several years, is these agent workouts. So now, as the guys that are heading up their guys, their clients, they want to be in control of the situation as much as they can, right? And so this week is very much about bringing all the exec scouts and a few media members to their own workouts. And one big advantage it also has is you're going to get those people to turn out for the elite guys, the top 10 guys, prospects, right? But it's also an opportunity to get those guys in front of maybe a early second round pick or maybe a G League guy that ordinarily these execs wouldn't waste an ounce of energy really on and maybe leave it to their general manager of their G League team. And so, I mean, I can tell you over the past several days, Pacers execs have been in Vegas. They've been in Los Angeles. They've been in on the outskirts of Los Angeles. As there's been all kinds of pro days go on. I mean, I think yesterday there were as many as 4 key ones that everybody surely had representation at.
And then later, as we get into June, they're going to host workouts that people will attend at the St. Vincent Center?
Yeah, that's correct. So, and what I thought was interesting, Ken, was right after the draft, Pacers almost always have a group in because they're already centrally located, right? And on their way home from Chicago, they can make a pit stop here to Indy. And for the first time, at least in my coverage, and even some people that have been following them longer than that, working for the team, couldn't remember a time when they've held back-to-back workouts on the same day. That's what the Pacers did last week, which included several local prospects. But at this point, Pacers and other teams, I'm sure, their draft board's mostly set, and now they're just trying to gather additional intel on players. So this is when you're also calling around trainers, you're calling around, former managers and those sorts of things. You know, talent-wise where these guys are at. They've been building their notebook since September and even before that. Now it's about furthering their intel, seeing, especially under Kevin Pritchard's watch, how much they fit the culture here, and then about calling around as well about potential deals, because at least according to Kevin Pritchard, the phone lines are open and he'd be very interested in making a deal, whether that moving up or moving back for additional compensation would be interesting.
You know, speaking of phone lines being open, there's a report that Daryl Morey is ready and willing to talk to everybody about anyone and any asset that he's got. Does that surprise you?
No, it really doesn't, because he's always been a mover and shaker that's never content of what they have. And also, I always keep in mind why something like this gets out. You know, what's the intention here, right? And so there's an end game, and I'm still thinking about it this afternoon and what Daryl's trying to say. And maybe it's a pitch to other elite guys that, hey, come here, we are all in for a title. And so maybe it's a pitch to see if you can get a Kawhi or a Kevin Durant. You know, the odds would seem to be slim, but I can promise you Daryl will make it work if, for instance, he gets a call that Durant's interested in teaming up with Harden again. Not to say that's the case at all, but I think that's perhaps what his goal here is in mind. And then also, I don't know how you do it, but if you could offload that Chris Paul contract, that would be huge, because it's so restrictive here when he's 33, 34 years old and you're paying him more than $40 million a year.
What do you think about the Pacers and their ability or desire to go out and get kind of a top-line free agent? I saw a report today where, at least odds-wise, they're talking about the possibility of Klay Thompson coming to the Pacers. Do you think that that's something that they might try to – I know it's preposterous, but, you know, is that something that can be maneuvered through, or do guys just want to go to a big town, or do they want to go someplace where they can win right away? Where does Indiana win in the potential courting of free agents?
All right, let's split this out into two groups. For one, specifically Klay Thompson. There's 0% chance he comes here. What would be the appeal? You could stay and continue a dynasty with Golden State, or you could go somewhere else and have a serious chance, even, you know, not at that level, but you could be in LA where he calls his off-season home, where his dad's the color commentator. There are far more desirable places individually. I give those like 0.5 chance, just because you never can rule anything out, I don't think.
Right.
What the Pacers
you're always
here,
one to hedge your bets.
You have to.
You don't want to say 0.
you just never know. Maybe he falls in love with a girl and his dog wants to move back to Indiana. And I don't know. You never know what Rocco wants to do, okay? But in terms of, this is the type of guy the Pacers are looking at. They're looking at a guy that's, maybe not been in a winning situation. The Pacers can almost guarantee they're going to be in the playoffs, right? They've done that 24 of the last 30 years. There's a guarantee for them. They can guarantee them outstanding facilities where basketball is the focus, where you have no real drama. You're not dealing with the outside noise of the Lakers and those certain things. Generally, it'd probably be more fitting for a little older player. And I'm talking kind of off that first max contract, that's 28, 29, because they kind of realize what's important. And what's important is a good situation obviously money. We all understand that. And just stability. I think that's one thing that gets lost in all this. Is the ability to go somewhere and have a stable situation where you're not worried about everything else. So to me, if you're talking about the elite guys where you have a chance, not reporting here, but I feel like in situational wise, it would make so much sense for Kemba Walker, who's lost in Charlotte, if he doesn't mind moving away from that situation where he's the face of the franchise. Mike Conley Jr., although he's a little older than I think the Pacers would want, and his contract a little bit prohibitive about what potential moves then you could do thereafter. Those are the type of guys that I see fitting here. You're not going to get a Klay Thompson, a Kawhi Leonard, those guys who are going to get the max dollar, and obviously the Pacers would pay that, but they don't offer all the other things that other situations and other cities can offer.
And that's the thing, because Klay's going to get max money no matter where he goes. So his criteria accepts money because the money's going to be the same wherever, because he didn't get the Supermax because he wasn't on one of the All-NBA 3 teams, right?
That's correct, yeah. And I voted Klay Thompson on my third team All-NBA. I valued winning in addition to just his game, I think, which is a little bit, not devalued, but maybe less appreciated because of the talent around him. Right. Than a guy like Kemba Walker, who I don't want to take anything away from, but it's also to an extent a guy that's having to shoulder a load and can get points on a bad team. Somebody's got to do it. And so that's why I valued winning in that situation more. And the same goes for Bradley Beal. He was about all they had, and he managed that situation very well, and I think played in 81 games. That's one thing I value. But at the same time, I'm like, Klay Thompson, Bradley Beal. Quick thought. Who do you want? And it's no question. You want Klay Thompson.
You know, Klay Thompson, the thing that strikes me about him is if you look at him statistically, on the floor you watch, and he's a terrific two-way player, really good defender. You look statistically, and he is so relentlessly consistent year after year after year. His numbers are almost identical. I mean, you can just kind of write down 20.5, 6 and 4, and you're done.
Yeah, and the thing that impresses me about him is just his poise and his demeanor does not change. And I think it's interesting. He's not one that necessarily takes criticism for it when a guy like Kawhi often does. If we want to bring it back local, Romeo Langford, that's one of the big questions that he was hit, he said, in all of his interviews with teams is, do you have that fire? And well, we don't see a ton of emotion, quite frankly, out of Klay Thompson. Occasionally after he hits a big three, or after they celebrate a win, but he's very stoic and to himself, I think, much like those other two guys. And yeah, he's as consistent as they come. To me, he's the second best shooter of all time behind Steph.
I think it's really interesting because what we're seeing with Klay and with Kawhi, like you said, are stoic guys. And there's Romeo who gets criticized for it and might get graded down by some teams. But as you look at guys in the NBA like Klay and Kawhi, maybe this helps Romeo, and maybe this is seen as an asset instead of a debit.
I think it should, or it shouldn't be necessarily a negative thing. It just shouldn't be maybe a positive thing at the same time. It shouldn't be that drawback. But I know for certain this is a big thing that he's not only having to answer about, but have to prove to teams. And I think that's kind of odd, too. Like, how do you show it, right? Because, if you show it, then you're not being yourself. You're not being true to who you are and the type of player you are. And I think if I'm a team, that goes back to my eye test and what I've been evaluating all year long with his game. You're not judging him. He didn't play, but you're not judging him off of, say, the draft combine and when he played 20 minutes with a group of players he's never played with before and didn't show emotion.
Beautiful. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
All right, Ken. Thanks.
That's the great Scott Agness of The Athletic. He does terrific work covering the Indiana Pacers and the NBA from an Indiana slant. He was up at the draft combine, published a terrific piece on Romeo Langford, Chris Wilkes, and Kyle Guy, who were all up there at the NBA draft combine. What are their prospects? What did they think of the experience? All that kind of stuff. Nice historical look at Mr. Basketballs in the NBA. Like I said, Scott Agness doing tremendous work. That's it for Sports Nothing But Sports on a Wednesday. Tomorrow, we're going to be live in Chicago, Illinois. I can't wait to be up there at the North Bureau. That's where we're headed. We're going to talk about Sports, Nothing But Sports, No Exceptions, Breakfast with Kent, tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock on Facebook Live, and then at about 8:15 on Periscope Live. We got it all covered. We talk sports, nothing but sports. We're relentless about it. That's what we do, all brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. Give them a call, become the next new patient, 317-849-2933. And tomorrow morning, join me at 8.